Congratulations on completing week 4 of Consumer Demand. This week, we looked at some of the strategic implications of the concepts that we developed in weeks 1, 2, and 3. So, the first thing that we had to do was develop a concept of a market equilibrium, and so we needed to have the supply side of the market. So, here we just assumed that supply was an upward sloping curve. This is related to the costs of production, that as prices rise, firms will have the incentive to produce more. As prices fall, firms will have the incentive to produce less. And that equilibrium point was where the quantity supplied equals the quantity demanded, the intersection of the supply and demand curves. And that's the market price and then the quantity that will be produced and sold at that price. And so, because of that, this is often called the market clearing price because the amount produced is exactly equal to the amount that consumers are willing and able to buy at that market price. And it's important, we looked at the implications of the elasticity for this equilibrium, especially as determinants of supply and demand are shifting the curves around, that the price elasticity of demand has a pretty large impact on the overall impact in the marketplace. And then as we looked at kind of other elasticities, we see that those elasticities are really measuring the size or the magnitude of the shift of the demand curve. And elasticity then has this implication for total revenue for the firm because that total revenue is price times quantity. As prices rise, that firms are going to be able to sell less, but sell those units at a higher price. And similarly, as prices fall, firms earn a lower per unit revenue, but they are able to sell more units. And so what we saw is that the price elasticity of demand helps us to understand the overall impact of those price changes. And then after that, we took a look at market intervention. And we spent a little bit of time thinking about the government's ability to intervene and adjust market prices. The first thing that we looked at was a price floor. And this is just like the floor that you're sitting or standing on now. It prevents you from going lower. So that price floor has to be above the market price. And what that does is that causes the quantity demanded to decrease a little bit. But again, it's really important, the price elasticity of demand will impact how big that change in the quantity demanded is. If demand is really inelastic, right, that demand curve is very steep, and so the change in the quantity demanded will be very small as a result of that. Those price restrictions can also work in the other direction as well. If we think about a price ceiling, right, that prevents you from going upwards, and similarly, this prevents the market price from going all the way up to the equilibrium. So it has to be set below that market price. And again, what this is going to do is this is going to lower the quantity that firms are willing and able to produce and offer for sale. And so the amount that's traded in the market will be lower, even though demand is going to be higher. This is going to create a fairly large shortage as a result of that. And again, that will depend upon the relative elasticities of these, the supply and the demand. And so what we saw kind of throughout this is that the elasticity has a really big impact on the effectiveness of these policies. And so we have to spend some time thinking about what is that overall goal that we're trying to accomplish with the policy, and then how the price elasticity of demand would impact our ability to achieve those goals. And then at the very end, right, we brought all of this together, thinking about the consumer choice model, the demand, the elasticity, and this market equilibrium. And we looked at how those changing equilibrium points will be impacted by the determinants of demand or the elasticity. And this is important because it helps us understand and predict overall changes in the market. That the determinants are changing, market conditions are constantly undergoing changes, And because of that, the market equilibrium is going to change, and we'll see the direction that those market forces are pushing us in. And it's important to remember that expectations, what consumers and producers expect to happen in the future, can have a really big impact here, especially as we think about that pushing the demand curve left or right. We can often see that that can counteract other impacts in the marketplace. And so those market forces then that we're seeing, they allow us to really think about what's going to be happening over time, right? What direction will markets be moving in? Thank you for taking part in consumer demand. I hope you find this useful in your daily lives, whether you're just a practitioner or you really just want some additional information about demand.